The realities of being a songwriter in the 21st century. Next on Carpe Diem. Hello and welcome to Carpe Diem. I'm Charlie Sanders, and today we'll be speaking with New York-based songwriter Nina Ossoff about the realities of making a living as a professional songwriter in the 21st century. Nina has had songs recorded by such artists as Daughtry, Halestorm, Theory of a Deadman, Shinedown, The Temptations, Jonathan Butler, Patti Austin, Hilary Duff, and Raymond Symone, to name just a few. She's had several platinum records, several #1 singles, and songs in movies, television commercials, and even a song on the Super Bowl, and I believe as well on the World Cup soccer broadcasts. Nina, have I left anything out of that illustrious career?
I've also had songs in toys. I have a song in a Barbie doll, which came from the Barbie Diaries. You press the button and out comes my song. So don't forget my toy career.
And what have you been doing recently?
Well, recently we were working with a Canadian duo called Courage My Love, and we had their single called Kerosene. And currently we are working with Eric Bergen, who is one of the stars from the Jersey Boys, and he currently has a role on Madam Secretary. So we're working on his EP.
Before we get down to a hard conversation about the realities of being a songwriter in a very difficult market, can you tell us how you got started in this and what drove you to get involved in songwriting in the first place?
Well, I was a musician first, and as a young child I was taking guitar lessons, and instead of practicing my lesson I would go to my teacher and bring in a new song that I had written that week. And this kept up for a month or so, and she finally said, you know, I think you want to be a songwriter, not a guitarist. And she wisely turned me on to another teacher who helped me study. So I went and studied music for a while, and eventually I landed in an ASCAP workshop that I auditioned for, sent in some songs. And Southside Johnny of the Asbury Jukes was the moderator, and he heard my song that I was selected for, and he came up to me at the end of the workshop and said, I love the song, I'm going to record it, and I'm even naming my record after that song. So that's how it started.
Well, certainly an interesting big break under interesting circumstances. In terms of deciding that you're going to write for others in their voice as opposed to yours, was that a difficult decision for you to make?
Yeah, I mean, it evolved. I started out wanting to do my own songs, and I was writing for myself, but it wasn't moving fast enough. And I started to attend workshops around the city, and I saw a career called writing for the market. And I started to get more involved in that, and I thought that it would be more fun and challenging for me at that point.
So as a lyricist, are you thinking about what you want to say when you're writing, or are you thinking about what someone else for whom you're writing wants to say?
When you're writing for the market, you are thinking about what that artist wants to say. So I sit down, and depending on who we're writing for that day, who I'm writing for that day, it could be in the voice of a 14-year-old boy, it could be a 30-year-old woman, it could be a band. So yes, always think about who I'm writing for in that voice, but the truths that come out in the lyric are many of the truths that I believe in. So kind of a mesh between that artist's voice and my own thoughts.
How does a songwriter prepare for one particular artist and in general writing for the market in terms of what trends are and whether or not to follow them?
Well, I listen to everything on the radio, all the different genres, and I think about the particular sound that's maybe within that genre, and if the artist falls within that certain genre, and how to tailor the song. Is it is it a pop song? Is it a pop alternative type of artist? Is it more of a rock pop artist? Is it more of a country pop type of artist? Or is it more of a hard rock artist? So I become familiar with the languages, the musical languages and lyrical languages of those genres and work from there.
In terms of deciding whether or not you're going to work alone or with co-writers, or for that matter with the artist, him or herself, what is the thinking and thought process and evolution that goes on behind that?
Well, as a songwriter, and especially today, the best thing to do is to always get in the room with the artist, because you will know right away what they're thinking, and you can try a melody out right away if they're comfortable singing it, and the lyrical idea, are they comfortable saying it? So working with the artist is always the preferable thing to do. But I do love working with other incredibly talented songwriters, and I love getting in a room with them and just creating, because they're where I am. They're usually versed in the same languages that I am, and it's a very fun process to work with other writers.
If you're writing in a room with an artist, does the artist sometimes evolve during the songwriting process to perhaps take the song in a different direction or want to say something different than ended up originally being the plan?
Yes, frequently that happens. And of course, a song always evolves. So you can be starting here and then ending up there. But yes, that does happen.
Is there ever tension involved there, or is it usually a very collaborative process?
I think usually it's a very collaborative process, but I don't know about tension, but sometimes the big dog emerges, and we're always hoping that the artist will be the one to pull us along, because it's harder as a writer if you're just sort of floundering around wondering, does this artist like what I'm doing? Do they not want to say? Are they being honest? When they're more in charge, it's a lot easier for a writer.
In terms of choosing co-writers that you're going to work with, either on a one-off basis or on a regular basis, what is the process that, on a thinking basis beforehand, that goes into deciding this is someone that I can work with and create art with?
Well, that's an interesting question. I like to work with people that are, of course, you always want to work with a stronger player, or an equal player, as in any kind of sport. But I like to work with people that are very strong in lyric, so I can share, sometimes so I can share the responsibility of the lyric. Or I like to work with people that don't have what I have, people that are way stronger in their producing or their arranging skills, or maybe harmonically they go to places that I haven't thought of going to. So I choose my collaborators on their musical abilities and their musical strengths, or their lyrical strengths. And sometimes I choose my collaborators on their connections, based on their connections. I can work with collaborator A, who's very strong musically but maybe doesn't have connections to certain artists or producers, or I may want to work with collaborator B, who has all those things and a connection. So that's what's my thinking when I go into writing sessions.
How important is likability in terms of choosing a co-writer?
Well,
or chemistry, I should say, as an additional factor.
Yeah, chemistry is very important, because sometimes a writer, well, you hope that writer will bring out the best in you and you'll bring out the best in that writer. But that the writers and yourself doesn't have the ego, so that you're always doing what's best for the song, not what's best for you. It's always about the song. So I choose my collaborators that are also open-minded and are willing to explore, because when you write, it's an exploring process. We try out different melodies, we try out different lyrics. Does this work? Does that work? And you want somebody who's open to doing all those things, to succeeding and to failing at certain things, so that you can try something else.
Let's move over into some of the business realities, as long as we're talking about co-writes, as a very important aspect of what songwriting is, I think, in today's marketplace.
Okay.
Do you ever come to an agreement beforehand with a potential collaborator in terms of what the splits will be between or among the various writers?
Usually not with a a straight up writer, but with a producer writer, yes, I've had that happen to me several times, where the publisher has called my publisher and said, my writer producer gets this much, and your writer can either walk into the room and agree to that, or maybe the session won't happen. And if I decide to bring in another co-writer, maybe we're 3 people in the room, then my person that I brought in and I would have to split our portion, and the producer still gets their portion. So yes, that comes up frequently.
And that is a source of conflict at times.
Yes, sometimes you have these songwriter prenups.
Are there ever situations in which you are asked to collaborate with someone who ends up being an artist or a producer who ends up not participating and asking for contribution credit anyway?
I've had that once or twice happen. But then, you know, sometimes there's another party or an artist or whoever in the room that doesn't really even contribute. But they're there and they're in the room, and sometimes we'll work that out so that maybe they'll take less of a percentage. And of course, we don't work it out, we have our people work it out, so that you can always still maintain that friendly working relationship with the people that you're working with.
Nowadays we see sometimes 5, 6 or more collaborators on a single composition. Is it possible to, under those circumstances, make a living as a songwriter? Or do you have to have other income sources and streams to supplement if you're going to be involved in that type of situation?
Well, I mean, every song is different, and I guess if you're 5 collaborators on a song with, say, a Taylor Swift single, you may be able to make a living at that. If you get that single and the radio play is enormous and the downloads are enormous. However, in most situations, it's tough. You have to have a lot of those songs if you're a lot of 5 or 6 or 7 collaborators and splitting all the percentages. So a lot of songwriters wear many different hats.
In terms of giving a writing credit to someone as opposed to giving publishing credit, is that an issue that comes up?
Yes, it is. Sometimes you are asked nicely by the artist's people or your own people to put the artist's name on the copyright, and then you have to weigh, is it worth doing this? Is it worth giving up part of my percentage to be able to further my career, to say that everything will work out nicely and the artist will get a percentage of that. So you do have these situations many times, and you have to decide for yourself if it's worth doing it, if you should fight it, if you think you have a chance to fight it, or if you should just say, no, I'm going to walk away. So all these things happen all the time. And depending where you are in your career, you can make these choices.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, that someone just starting out may have an entirely different thought process in evaluating the relative value than someone who's established as a songwriter in the industry.
Correct, and when you're starting out, it's all about amassing credentials. So you want to get as many song credits as you possibly can. And frankly, if you get your name, if you have an amazing song and you do agree to put the artist's name or whoever that had nothing to do with it, that could maybe jettison your career, and it could be, you know, it could jettison, or it could elevate it to the point where it's the greatest thing that ever happened to you.
In advising young songwriters who come to you and say, how do I get started really from the ground up as a music creator, what do you usually tell them?
Well, first I tell them to know your craft, know the history of your craft. Listen to every kind of music there is that's out there. Listen to all the different lyrics. Listen to how people did things before to have a great working knowledge. Listen to all different kinds of music. Listen to the blues, listen to country, listen to rock, listen to everything, so that you get all these flavors and all this history at your at your fingertips, that when you sit down and create, you can add these things. Or if you've heard something said in a certain way, you can use that as a jumping off point. Say, oh, well, they did it this way. I want to do it this way, or my way this time. So I would say get to know everything that you can about your craft. And then get to know everything you can about the business side of things.
How does one go about doing that?
I would say attend workshops that are given all over in the major cities. Do some online courses. Many people give online courses, such as the song camp that we're participating in. Go to networking parties. Ask other songwriters. Just do as much as you can. I mean, this is a living, breathing, 24/7 career that you've chosen.
You mentioned developing a vocabulary in terms of a knowledge of past musical artistry. Do you feel that that's an aspect of the music community that's lacking at this point, or is it the same as it's always been?
I think half and half. I think some people are motivated to go out and listen to everything because they just genuinely love music and love song, and they want to know as much as they can about it. But I have worked and collaborated with people that I am just so surprised that they don't know their history at all, or they don't know certain artists, certain icons. It's always very surprising to me.
Any particular writers of the past influence you in your career?
Well, I went out and did all that kind of research and listened to everybody and everything. And my favorites, I listened to Joni Mitchell, Carly Simon, Carole King, Stephen Sondheim, Leonard Bernstein, Rodgers and Hammerstein. Listened to the best of the best, and I would say they're my influences.
Would you say that you seem to have crossed genres many times in writing? I hear some Stevie Wonder influence in some of the things that you've done. Certainly some Motown, other Motown artists. Is there a particular sound that you're trying to recreate?
No, not at all. I just want to write in all the different genres that there are. It's fun to sit down and do a different genre every day, or whenever the muse strikes, and wherever you get a creative idea that goes in one direction or another direction. But it's all fun and it's all exciting, and actually doing something different is challenging, and it doesn't get repetitive.
It's a very hit-centric business. Is it possible for music creators and songwriters to make a good living as a creator without a hit? Or is that really an essential element that everyone is going for right now?
I think it's very difficult to not have a hit. It used to be where we got our mechanical royalties on records and CDs.
And that's royalties for each record sold.
Sold, correct. You were able to make a living off of not having the single. But today, no, you need that single. Or if you can license your songs to different corporate events, or different whatever the commercials, whatever the call is, you can make a decent living doing that too. If your name gets out there and you start to get calls for what you can do and what you create.
And I assume that by a hit and making it that way, you're talking about performance royalties being a key income source for songs each time they're played on a broadcast medium or streamed, as opposed to record sales, which have diminished enormously over the past several years.
Yes, that's what we're discussing.
What's the feeling in the songwriter community about streaming, and whether or not the compensation on a per-stream basis is adequate to sustain the industry?
Well, I believe the community thinks that it's not adequate. That you see the figure, oh, your song was streamed you know, 10 million times, and then you see your check, and there's a discrepancy between the number of streams and what you're actually seeing on your check. So yeah, I believe the songwriting community is not very happy about that.
Do you see a more active songwriter community voicing its displeasure over this as time goes on?
Yes, I do.
Well, if you were going to give a homework assignment to someone out there in the audience who aspires to be a music creator, a composer, a lyricist, what would you tell them as a homework assignment to get busy with to advance their career before they make any final decisions, or as a way to get into the business?
Well, aside from listening to all the genres, as I mentioned before, and to become really immersed in them, I would say write as much as you can. Write by yourself, see if your voice is the voice that you're happy with, or collaborate with as many different people as you can, other good writers, better writers, so that they can teach you things. Because you're used to looking one way, learn all the different perspectives that you can to write a song or get into your concept, and then to start taking your songs and getting them out there and pitching them to different artists and television shows and movies, and see if you're getting the results that you want to get. So that's what I said, that's what I think your assignment should be.
You've pursued also setting up your own songwriter group that tends to work together quite a bit collaboratively. Is that a good way to go?
I believe so. I think after, but then again, you have to try a lot of different things out. After working with so many people and doing songwriting, speed dating as we call it, I was very happy to find two writers that I work with, and we formed a writing production group called The Girls, and we've been working together for 15 years, and we've yielded wonderful results. So for me, this ended up to be a wonderful thing. And we each do other side projects, but as a core group, we're very happy.
What's it like hearing a song that you've written on the radio or performed live? What's the emotional experience like?
The high is incredible, and the excitement. I remember the first time I heard one of my singles on the radio. I was driving actually down the Jersey Turnpike, and I pulled the car to the side of the road. I wish I were somebody else at the time, but I pulled the car to the side of the road, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. It's pretty amazing when you hear your stuff.
Is it a feeling of power in a way that something that you created on your own is now being broadcast and listened to by thousands or millions? Well,
yeah, you're hoping they're enjoying what you've had to say. The things that you've had to say musically and lyrically, that your message is getting across, and it's a feeling of success. And for me, it was always motivational to move on to the next and to write more and to keep up the momentum.
It's been a pretty active political time, I think, over the past several years. Do you feel that the music community is making the same kind of contribution to the political dialogue as it once did? Or is that something that is percolating but hasn't yet expressed itself?
Well, I think the music community has been very active as of late, with agreeing or not agreeing to their songs being played in particular political campaigns, which I thought was great to hear a lot of artists come out either for or against the political party who chose their songs. So yeah, I do think that the community is becoming more active in that respect on how they want their songs heard and perceived, and in the songwriter rights arena, and going down to getting many more people going down to DC and speaking up for songwriter rights.
Do you think that the current crop of kids coming up as writers understand the power that's been exercised by songwriters and musicians in the past in terms of affecting the political discourse? Or is that something that you don't hear discussed much?
I don't hear discussed much.
Interesting.
I think, when you're a young songwriter, all you are concerned about is getting your songs out there, writing, and getting them out there.
As opposed to a singer-songwriter or prospective recording artist who may have a personal message that they want to deliver?
I guess that could be true. I just haven't come into that much contact with people that are. I'm sure there are.
In terms of where you think the music is headed and the next big thing, is it possible to predict on a genre basis what that might be?
I have no clue. My job is just to see where it's going and to pursue that.
So, following trends as opposed to creating them is the job of the professional songwriter? Or is it taking things in a new direction?
Well, I think you can take things in a new direction, and sometimes, we look at and we study song forms, and sometimes an artist will come along or writers will come along that'll do a form, a verse, chorus, pre-chorus, whatever you want to call it, mishmash that you haven't heard before, and to me that's taking it in a new direction. So yes, I do believe, and then people jump on that and say, wow, that is so cool, and then they follow that. So yeah, I do think, but as in any field, I think those people are few and far between, the ones that trailblaze.
Interesting. Last words in terms of advice to kids coming up?
Well, I think you should just, as I said, keep writing, keep experimenting, and just get out there. Do as much as you can. Don't write or be in your room. You have to take risks. You have to accept rejection to get those successes. So I would say, and you have to do it 24/7.
In terms of following your dreams, is facing disappointment a big part of that?
I think that I've been disappointed, yes, but I've been very happy too. But it's my disappointments have motivated me more to work harder.
So resiliency is a huge factor.
Oh, you have to be in the arts. You have to be. That's number one survival skill.
Well, I want to thank Nina Ossoff so much for dropping by the studio and sharing her insights on the realities of being a songwriter. If you'd like more information about this or any other Carpe Diem program, you can write to us at the email address on your screen, carpediem@mail.montclair.edu, or call us at 973-655-5158. For Carpe Diem, I'm Charlie Sanders. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.